What happened when I confronted my family's darkest secret? Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Uncle Victor's hand shook as I slid the burned photo across the table. The kitchen clock throbbed at 6:18 p.m., rain combing the gutters outside the old house on Harbor Street. I am Mara, 29, the one who files call numbers and card scans the past for a living. Librarian isn't glamorous, but it taught me to keep receipts, real ones, and the kind you keep in your head. I've learned that paper doesn't forget as quickly as people do. My hands smelled like damp cardboard from the archive box I'd carried in. The photo was blistered at the corners and bent into a reluctant smile. It showed our porch in July 1999, a cake with sparklers, and a shadow where a person should be. I told him, quietly, "I think the date on this is wrong, Victor." He blinked, then gripped the chair so hard the cane wicker sighed. Elena set a plate down too loudly. Theo's knee bumped the table, rattling the glass with lemon slices. I shouldn't be the one forcing this. I shouldn't be the one risking everyone's version of safety. But if I'm wrong, I lose more than a place at Sunday dinners. I lose the work that keeps me standing straight, because I put my name on a claim that can't stand. The printer on the hall table hummed. I had queued scanned pages, parish ledger excerpts, a county clerk index, bank statements with the trust name Blue Gull. Victor looked smaller than 61, less yacht, and more pure splinter. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked. "You don't know what that cost us." I thought about the email that sent me spiraling. No subject line, no greeting, only a docket number, P00-1453, cropped from the top of a court filing like a ransom note. I'd searched the number before I could stop myself, knowing that once you read something, you can't unknow it. The municipal server time-stamped my query, 10/03, 8:42 a.m. Outside, thunder staggered across the bay and the power flickered like a flinch. I said, "Someone has been paying for a story to stay buried." Victor's mouth tightened. Then, almost tenderly, he reached for the photo as if warming it could heal it. The house went quiet enough to hear the burner click. Then the front bell rang. Family legend paints us in careful strokes. Elena, the matriarch who could will a storm in a changing course. Victor, her older brother, a dockside king who made bad weather feel like a rumor. Theo and me, summer kids who learned to bait hooks by watching. If you ask Elena, we kept our heads down, worked hard, didn't gossip. If you ask anyone else, we were a story, and she edited every line. When I was 8, I asked who the woman in the attic portrait was, the one with the simple dress and the stern mouth. "A cousin," Elena said, "dropped from the tree. I learned not to pull at branches." Last month, at a church brunch, I asked Father O'Leary how long our family had been parishioners. Elena's smile thinned. "Don't pester," she whispered, passing me a plate like a summons. "People remember what we feed. Little slights like that stack quietly, like magazines you promised to read." 3 weeks ago, Victor laughed when he saw my hands ink-smudged from cataloging a 1974 fishing guide. "Scholar hands," he said, like a joke with a dull blade. "Shame books can't fix real problems." Theo squeezed my shoulder under the table, a truce or a warning. I kept my mouth closed because peace, in this family, is a porcelain thing that chips, never shatters. Visible, permanent, everyone pretending not to see. The night that photo turned up, Elena served cod that smelled like lemon and steel. She said grace with extra salt in her voice. "We are grateful for the simple gifts." Victor drank too fast, stories coming out like tightened sails. When I asked again about 1999, the summer of the porch party and the bad year, Elena slapped her napkin down. "You don't know what a bad year is," she said. The room rearranged itself around the sentence. Theo shook his head, a no that meant please. I decided to stop asking for a minute and start looking. Because every family myth has an index, and ours had a missing entry. The attic smelled like cedar, old rain, and the sour whisper of glue. I climbed at noon on October 2nd, when Elena was out with her church committee and Victor was down at the marina. The light cut through lace curtains, laying a grid on dust. I found a mislabeled banker's box beneath needlepoint pillows. Christmas '01, written in Elena's bold blue. Inside, no ornaments. Instead, funeral programs, a church ledger photocopy with a line blacked out, and a family Bible with one name scraped so hard the paper thinned like ice. The memorial program said Clara Hart, 1970 to 1999, service date, July 18, 1999, St. Raphael's. I knew the porch party was July 18th. We baked a sheet cake because my mother said heat would make a layer cake cruel. Our camcorder battery died that night. I remember because Theo cried, and Elena told him the memory would be better without a camera. In the Bible, the scraped spot sat between Elena married 1988 and Mara born 1994. Someone wrote C in pencil in the margin, then rubbed even that away. I told myself it was a coincidence. Mistakes happen, paper ages. Then I found the third oddity, the photo with the blistered corners, showing the porch, the cake, and the shadow near the steps where a person might have stood, burned away by a cigarette, maybe, or a match held too near. My stomach dropped hot and slow. I remembered a neighbor, Mrs. Keene, telling me once, some days in this town, the fog isn't weather. I set the artifacts side by side. Program, ledger copy, photo. July 18th, 1999 appeared like an accusation. I took phone photos, noting time, 12:24 p.m., 12:25 p.m., 12:26 p.m. I slid everything back exactly, even the dust, the way you reset a chessboard for a player who hates losing. I walked downstairs, hands buzzing. Theo texted, "Dinner at 6? Please don't." The doorbell rang before I could type back. Answering, I found a plain manila envelope, no return address, only my name block printed. Inside, a single cropped header with the docket number P00-1453 and the county seal. It felt like being tapped on the shoulder by a stranger who knows your middle name. I looked up and saw Victor's truck in the driveway, idling longer than usual. The envelope had the texture of old teeth. I carried it to my apartment above the bakery on Wharf Street, where the air always held a trace of cinnamon after 5. I typed P00-1453 into the county portal, heart stuttering when the page loaded. Petition to seal records, in re. Hart, Clara. Filed August 2nd, 2000. Names, petitioner, Victor Hart. Supporting affidavit, Elena Hart. Reason cited, protective of surviving parties' privacy after traumatic loss. Sealing orders are legal, ordinary even. But the timing scraped me raw. I printed the docket meta page with the system watermark, October 3rd, 2025, 8:42 and 13 seconds. I called the clerk. A tired voice said, "Sealed means sealed, miss." I asked if I could verify the existence of the petition. She sighed. "You just did." When I called Elena, she said, "Don't start this, Mara." Her tone closed a door in my throat. "We made choices to keep you safe." "From what?" I asked, watching the bakery's pre-dawn lights come on. She hung up. At 9:10, someone slid a note under my door. "Ask about the fire." The handwriting was neither Elena's nor Victor's. I saved the note in a Ziploc like a crime show extra. At lunch, I went to St. Raphael's. Father O'Leary blinked when he saw me with a notebook. "I can't share sacramental records," he said, softening when I explained I was checking dates. "But you can look at the parish newsletter archive." July 1999's newsletter had a notice, prayer for the Hart family in their time of grief. No name, no cause. The same page advertised a fundraiser for the volunteer fire department to replace damaged hoses. I took a deep breath and tasted ash that wasn't there. That evening, storm clouds tripped over one another. At dinner, Victor poured me wine without asking. "We don't need a librarian in our laundry," he said. "Let it dry." Elena looked at him like he'd said the quiet part too loud. I kept my voice level. "Someone sent me a docket number," I said. "Petition to seal about Clara." Theo's fork clinked. "Mara," he warned. Victor didn't blink. "Clara had a bad year," he said. "So did we." Then a process server knocked, and Victor's grin emptied out like a tide. The man at the door wore a windbreaker and the look of someone who measures afternoons and doorsteps. "Victor Hart?" he asked. Victor didn't move. Elena stepped forward like a shield. "We're eating." The server nodded, unimpressed by cod or weather. He handed Victor a packet thick as a paperback. Notice of inquiry, trust administration review, filed by Office of the Probate Examiner. A bright yellow sticky note read, "Blue Gull Trust, records request overdue." Theo's chair scraped. "What's Blue Gull?" he asked. Elena's napkin creased into a sharp rope. "A family matter," The server left with a polite, "Good evening." I stared at the packet. Request for statements, disbursement logs, beneficiary list, with dates reaching back to May 1999. Victor said, too quickly. Administrative, clerical. Elena added, "We'll handle it," which always meant you won't. After dishes, Theo walked me to the porch. The air smelled like wet rope and fried sugar from the fairground. "Please," he said, "you're making this worse." "Something happened the week of July 18th, I said. Victor filed to seal records a year later. The church newsletter mentions grief. The fire department needed new hoses. Theo pinched the bridge of his nose. "You're building a house from fog." I pulled out the note slid under my door. "Ask about the fire," he read. He swallowed. "Mrs. Keene likes drama." I told him about Blue Gull. He shrugged like the word meant nothing. Back inside, Victor stood with Elena in the dining room, speaking in the low mix of threat and comfort people use with skittish animals. Elena's face had that old storm-bending look. "You will not go poking around the church," she said. "You will not embarrass us at the harbor." "Embarrass you with what?" I asked. "Dates." Victor smirked. "You don't understand the cost of truth." I surprised myself. "I understand what secrecy charges in interest." Elena flinched. At home, I laid everything on my table like a flat museum. The burned photo, the program, the docket printout, the sticky note, my own list of questions in thick pen. I drew a line between July 1999 and August 2000. I circled Blue Gull. Then I noticed the back of the memorial program felt thicker, as if two sheets kissed. With steam from my kettle, the edge lifted. Hidden inside was a storage unit receipt dated July 21st, 1999, signed V. Hart. The receipt listed Mariner Storage, Unit C, 17, paid cash, 3 months in advance. Item description: personal effects, boxes, framed items. A note in blue ink. No solvents. I called Mariner Storage. "We still have C-17, a woman said, tapping keys. "Account is delinquent since 2001. But it's marked on hold. Owner request signed in 2000 by probate counsel." My chest went light. "If an owner dies?" I asked. "Depends on the trust," she said. "Bring ID and a court order." I hung up and stared at my bathroom mirror like it might write advice. Librarians rarely need court orders. We need patience and a good pencil. I Googled Probate Examiner Blue Gull Trust and found a public phone tree. The clerk wouldn't tell me anything beyond process. "If you're a beneficiary, you can petition for an accounting," she said. "Are you?" "I don't know," I said, feeling how cold that sentence was. I texted Theo, "Do you know Blue Gull?" Bubble dots. Then stop. I printed a request for information letter anyway, dated it October 4th, 2025, and addressed it to the probate examiner's office. I copied my driver's license. I also printed a simple letter to Mariner Storage requesting a hold review, citing the abandonment statute with tentative confidence. I slid both into envelopes, took a photo of each, timestamped 1411 and 1413. That evening I walked past the docks. The pilings wore green beards. Victor stood by his boat, the second chance, like a man who believes in names. "You're trespassing," he called, though I was on public planks. I held up the receipt. His face emptied. "You don't know what you're doing." "Then tell me," I said. "Tell me what happened to Clara." His eyelid twitched, the only honest thing on his face. "Some fires go out," he said. "Some smolder," I said. "The parish prayed for grief the same week the fire department replaced hoses." He stepped closer, voice honeyed and hard. "Mara, you're shaking our house because you like the sound." I did not move. I had the receipt, the docket, and the note. I had the way Elena touched the program's edge like it might bleed. I had July 18th, 1999 burning a hole in the calendar. Then Victor whispered, "If you open C-17, you won't sleep again this year." I started with places that still keep ink under their nails. The county clerk's office smelled like copier toner and winter coats, even in October. I asked for index cards on petitions, trusts, and any filings that brushed our name. "Indexes are public," the clerk said, sliding a tray toward me like a deck of old fortunes. "Documents aren't, if sealed." I wrote down every Hart entry from 1998 to 2001, then traced the dates into my notebook. August 2nd, 2000, petition to seal, checked. June 3rd, 1999, Blue Gull Trust established, Checked. The notation domestic trustee change appeared December 2000, which was strange after a seal. At St. Raphael's archive basement, I logged my visit in pencil and asked to see the newsletter binders again. The July 1999 issue had a faint shadow under the prayer notice. I held the page to the light and saw where a line had been whitened out, a second name scrubbed. I copied the page under my hand scanner, dated the file 10/05/2025_istraf_news_1999_07. PNG. Next was the cemetery office. A map pinned with colored tacks showed plots like cautions. The keeper, Ms. Alvarez, said, "Hearts are in Section C. Clara's stone is unmarked at the family request." Family request? I repeated. She pointed to a ledger entry signed V. Heart on July 20th, 1999. Note. Temporary marker only. My pencil shook. Across town, I met a woman named Dell in a coffee shop near the courthouse. She used to assist a local attorney and once dated a firefighter. Blue Gull, she said, stirring too long. I saw cashier's checks back then, same memo line every month, maintenance stipend. No invoices attached. At the bank, the manager wouldn't speak, but a teller I recognized from school whispered that disbursements posted on the 15th like rent. Patterns are loud when you listen. I took photos of every public-facing piece. Lobby bulletin with a charity's mailing address, a corkboard flyer for Harbor Mercy Fund, and a faded Polaroid of a ribbon cutting where Victor smiled like a mayor. I wrote, "Trust Mercy Fund who?" In the late afternoon, I checked the fire department's records. The public report for July 18th, 1999 listed single-family structure, probable cause, electrical, damage, total, injuries, 2, fatalities, 1. An addendum sheet, unsigned, carried the name Hart. Tomorrow, I would ask the retired chief who signed the report. Chief Moran kept a shed behind his house that held a boat and 30 years of stories. He braced his coffee on a crate and said, "I'm old, not blind." I showed him the report number. He stared at the date like it could still burn. "Small place off Mill Lane," he said. Tenant had complained about sparks. Landlord said an electrician came. "Did one?" I asked. He sighed. "There's a receipt in the file." It looked tidy. He wouldn't say forged, but the word hummed. "Injuries 2, fatality 1. Woman pulled out," he said softly. "Brother didn't make it." He glanced toward the bay. "We were told, firmly, to keep names quiet." I hated that. My pen paused over the page. "By who?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I left with a copied incident sheet that included a handwritten line I hadn't seen before. Donor covered equipment replacement, Harbor Mercy. At the library, I cross-checked charity filings. Harbor Mercy Fund wasn't a charity at all. It was a DBA under a private foundation with a one-page disclosure and a trustee, V. Hart. Payments listed as community grants totaled $3,200 monthly from August 1999 through September 2001, then resumed sporadically. $800 here, $1,500 there, last one 18 months ago. The payee lines were redacted online, but the check images, blurry, public by mistake, showed an address on Keene Street. My stomach dipped like a gull. Mrs. Keene and her daughter Renee lived there. Renee would be 40 now. I remembered a girl with a backpack and eyes that never met yours. The cemetery ledger, the sealed petition, the trust dates, the monthly checks mimicking rent. All of it said the same quiet thing. This wasn't benevolence. This was hush. Clara's program, the scrubbed newsletter, the empty plot, silence with receipts. I drove to Keene Street and sat with the engine off. Renee came out to water a geranium that refused to quit. I watched her kneel, back straight. It hit me then. The unmarked stone might be her brother's, and the checks might be the price of his absence. If a Hart house burned because corners were cut, then Victor didn't just bury grief. He paved over liability. I wrote a name and a question. Renee Dalton. Will she talk? Before I could knock, a silver SUV idled behind me with its headlights off. The SUV's window slid down a cautious inch. Elena's profile was a coin in the dark. "Get in," she said. I got in because refusal would make a scene on a quiet street where scenes turn into stories. The car smelled like lemon and new plastic. "You can't understand the weight of that summer," she began, hands 10 and 2, eyes straight. Clara wanted to leave town. Victor was trying to help. By sealing records? By paying a fund that isn't a fund? I asked. She flinched. We did what we could with the tools we had. Whose tools? I said. Who told Chief Moran to keep names quiet? Who filed Blue Gull 6 weeks before the fire? She blinked fast, angry tears that refused to fall. Do not turn your education into a knife. Then hand me the truth, I said, thinking of Renee's stooped back, the warped porch rail on Mill Lane, the charred beams that probably still slept in some landfill. Elena pulled to the curb by the harbor. The bay clinked with halyards hitting masts. If you make this public, she said, you will gut this family in front of people who clap. If I don't, I said, we keep telling a lie that hurts someone who's still here. She stared at the black water. Clara was pregnant, she said, voice almost gone. The sentence landed like a pier piling. She was leaving a man who wasn't safe. The pieces shifted again. Was the fire connected to him? I asked. She shook her head once, a no that meant not exactly. Victor bought time, she said. Money buys time. Sometimes it buys silence. My breath steamed the window. There's a storage unit, C-17, opened 3 days after the fire, I said. I think it holds whatever you were afraid of. She put the car in park. If you open it, do it with a witness. The word witness changed the temperature in the car. I texted Attorney Patel, a patron who once thanked me for finding her in 1904 treatise. Emergency consult? I wrote. She called back in 5 minutes and listened without interrupting. You need certified copies, Patel said. You need timestamps. And you need to invite someone who will not be swayed by tears. I looked back toward Keene Street, at a window glowing like a patient lantern. Tomorrow, we would open C-17 with Patel and Theo standing by. Elena insisted on a proper dinner before any more theatrics. She set the table with the wedding china reserved for births and reconciliations. Victor carved a roast as if demonstrating mercy. Theo passed peas like a peacekeeper distracted by smoke. We're family, Victor said, voice warm as a warning. We fix things in-house. He angled his chair, blocking my exit with the easy choreography of a man who's practiced doors. Remember Clara's laugh? He asked, weaponizing nostalgia. Remember sparklers? Remember how you cried when the camcorder died? My knuckles bleached around my napkin. I remember a petition to seal. P-00-1453, filed August 2nd, 2000. I said. I remember Blue Gull constituted June 3rd, 1999. I remember a fire on July 18th, 1999 that killed a man, and a Harbor Mercy fund that looks like a trust with a costume. Victor's eyes narrowed. You're doing arithmetic without context. Elena's fork made a bright wrong sound. Theo murmured, Mara, please. Then, 3 soft knuckles at the side door. Attorney Patel stepped into the hall, invited by Elena after my text, dressed in gray that said court before comfort. This is a social call, Victor said. Then I'll be social, Patel replied. I brought a portable scanner, consent forms, and a notary stamp. She placed a manila folder on the table like a mirror. If your family wants it in-house, start with an accounting. Victor laughed, sharp and brief. Librarians and their friends, he said. Do you understand what you're breaking? If it's fragile, Patel said calmly, it's not a truth, it's a lie. He leaned close enough that I saw a nick on his chin. If you say Clara's name in public, he whispered, I will remind everyone she wasn't a saint. The room contracted. Elena stared at her plate. Theo stared at me. I reached for Patel's stamp. Tomorrow, I said. 10 a.m. Church Hall, copies for everyone. Victor's smile chilled. Not without me, he said. You wouldn't dare without me. We already dared, Patel said, and slid a subpoena request form across the linen. Victor stood so fast the chair slammed back, and the chandelier began to sway. At 9:42 a.m., the church hall smelled like metal chairs and last week's coffee. I signed the room log. October 7th, 2025, Records Review. Beside a doodle someone had left of a fish with honest eyes. Patel arranged a portable projector, a folding screen, and stacks of labeled files. Clerk Index, Heart, Blue Gull, Public Abstracts, St. Raphael, Newsletters, Fire Department, Incident Public. She photographed each stack with her phone for timestamps, then laid a neat grid of pins like she trusted paper to behave when watched. Elena arrived first, carrying a tin of lemon bars because she can't arrive empty-handed to a reckoning. Theo stood by the exit, arms crossed, as if he could negotiate physics. At 9:59, Victor walked in with a leather folder and the smile of a man who'd been a donor too long to imagine no. Detective Ruiz followed at 10:01, invited by Patel as an observer because witnesses keep stories straight. Ruiz nodded, neutral. If crimes are alleged, I will step outside, he said. If victims are identified, I am bound to report. Victor's jaw flexed. Who invited the badge? I did, Patel said, because our copies are time-stamped, but fear makes clocks slippery. We began with the fire report printed for public view. Single-family structure. Injuries 2, fatality 1, probable cause electrical. Ruiz asked for the incident number and wrote it down, not looking at anyone. Patel projected the bank's public foundation disclosure, line items labeled Community Grants, the DBA Harbor Mercy Fund, Trustee V. Hart, amounts neat as fence posts. Then the cemetery ledger photo, temporary marker only, signed V. Hart, on July 20th, 1999. Victor's fingers tapped his folder in a rhythm that pretended to be patience. Context, he said. I will provide context. Patel raised a palm. In a moment. First, the storage unit. She set down the receipt dated July 21st, 1999, Mariner Storage, Unit C-17, and an affidavit from the manager confirming the long hold signed by probate counsel in 2000. She slid a letter from the probate examiner acknowledging our request for accounting status. Received October 4th, 2025, 1411. Ruiz clicked his pen closed. If that unit contains personal effects of a deceased, he said, we open it with care. Victor finally opened his leather folder, revealing a single key on a blue float labeled C-17. He placed the key on the table and said, You'll wish you left this closed. We drove in a sorrowful convoy along the harbor to Mariner Storage. The wind pushed Gull sideways. The manager met us with a clipboard and the caution of someone who has learned to outlast other people's storms. Unit C-17, she said, confirming IDs, copying the key tag number, logging us at 10:46 a.m. The corrugated door groaned up like a waking thing. The smell hit first. Old smoke, damp cloth, citrus cleaner, the iron penny note of something that once bled heat. Boxes stacked waist-high. A garment bag tipped like a fainting guest, an old camcorder case with melted plastic at one hinge. Patel photographed the lock, the door, the first view. Ruiz held up a hand. We move slow, he said. We log who touches what. Victor hovered, suffocatingly helpful. Elena stood small, hands knit around her lemon bar tin. Theo rubbed his temple like a man translating thunder. The camcorder case clicked open under my hands. Inside, the missing July 1999 tape with a post-it, battery dead, charge. Patel produced a universal charger like a magician, and we fed the tape into a borrowed deck Mariner kept for lean auctions. The screen flickered to a porch, sparklers fizzing, a cake with good luck C in blue. Laughter, Clara's? Carried across the audio, clear enough to hurt. Then a cut to Mill Lane. Night. Sirens. Renee, young, blue backpack, crying. My brother. He's still. As two firefighters pulled her back. The camera jerked. Someone shouted, Stop recording, for Christ's sake. The footage ended in a smear of light and a thumb. My ribs ached with the urge to rewind time instead of tape. Patel breathed. We have a chain of evidence now. In a banker's box labeled Receipts, we found the electrician's invoice with a signature that trembled like imitation and a duplicate stamp from a company dissolved in 1998. Behind it, a folder marked Mercy held copies of cashier's checks to R. Dalton at Keene Street, Memo Community Care, and a typed letter. This support is contingent upon confidentiality regarding events of July 18, 1999. Victor swallowed. We were protecting a pregnant woman from scandal, he said. We protected the town from a fire sale of gossip. Ruiz shook his head slowly. You bought silence about a death and a negligent repair, Mr. Hart. Victor slammed the box shut and hissed, Say negligent again and watch me bury you too. Back at the church hall, the day turned official. Ruiz called in a records technician to clone the tape and catalog the documents. Patel wrote a brief to accompany a voluntary disclosure to the probate examiner and the fire marshal's office. Elena sat with her palm against her mouth, eyes on a water stain shaped like New Hampshire. Theo sagged into a chair. "So we go to prison?" he whispered. "No," Patel said, gentle but not vague. "Negligent homicide isn't proved by a forged invoice alone, and statutes run. But hush money to suppress potential civil claims is different. Estate assets used for concealment invite review. A sealed petition can be unsealed for cause." Victor paced, a tiger in a borrowed chapel, spitting years as if they were proof. 1999 was chaos, he said. Clara was pregnant by a man who hit her. I paid Renee's family because grief makes debt, whether you owe or not. You used the word contingent, Patel said, finger on the typed letter. You purchased a condition instead of an apology. Elena finally spoke. We were afraid the baby would be taken from her, she said. We were afraid ashamed. The hall's old radiator ticked like a metronome for cowardice. Ruiz accepted our packet and said, I will file a report with the state fire marshal and the DA's office for review. I'll also make a referral to the probate court. He paused. And I will knock on Keene Street. With compassion. The price began to present its bill. A local blogger posted that Old Harbor royalty met with police. My library director asked for a meeting to ensure neutrality. Theo's boss texted. Everything okay? Like a fist with a band-aid. The phone at Elena's house rang until she unplugged it. Victor retreated to the marina, where donors become ghosts. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the tape's porch scene 3 times, stopping at Good Luck C, hearing the smile under a woman's breath. I wrote Renee a letter apologizing for our calendar of silence, promising to sit across from her and listen without defense. Then a reporter left a voicemail that ended, We're going live at 6. By morning, the harbor had opinions. The paper ran a careful piece. Questions surround 1999 fire, local trust, with more white space than conclusions. My library director asked me to step back from local history inquiries for the appearance of propriety. It felt like exile with polite frosting. I started therapy with a counselor Elena's friend recommended. Tuesday at 4 p.m. Room with a rubber plant that looked braver than me. The first session I said, I'm angry that protecting people became hurting people. She said, name both, then choose boundaries that protect forward. Boundaries became visible fences. I wrote Victor a letter stating conditions for contact. No demands for secrecy, no financial manipulations, conversations only in writing or with a witness, no more we when he meant you. I emailed Patel to set up a structured fund, not Harbor Mercy, a legitimate reparations account managed by a third party, offering Renee counseling, legal review, and memorial costs without strings. Patel drafted a document with the words I wanted engraved. Conditional on nothing, admission of harm, not of law but of conscience. Elena came to my apartment with soup and a box of photos. This is Clara, she said, laying down a snapshot. Brown jacket, wind in her hair, eyes that looked like the horizon had told her a joke. We told ourselves we were saving a baby, Elena whispered, voice old with regret. Maybe we were saving our place at church. I asked her to come with me to Keene Street. We knocked. Renee opened the door and didn't slam it. We stood on the porch like students. I said, I can't return anything except a name and a tape. She let us in. We watched the porch scene together. She laughed once, a sound with splinters. He was good, she said of her brother. He didn't deserve to become a lesson. We made a plan for a proper stone with his name, date, and a line she chose, loved in full. I asked Elena if she'd attend the placement. She nodded like rain finally chose a direction. That night, Victor texted, if you speak at that stone, you're dead to me. The stone setting took place on a gray Saturday that smelled like salt and pencil shavings. Ms. Alvarez met us at Section C with a canvas bag of tools, a clipboard, and reverence that didn't need an audience. Renee stood steady, hand on the cool edge as if greeting a long late bus. Elena wore the scarf Clara had given her the winter before it all burned. Theo carried the lemon bars Elena bakes when words won't come. I read a brief note for the people who listen later. We believed silence kept us safe. It kept us small. Today we make room for the names we erased. I explained, in sentences older listeners could follow, that sealed means a court hides the paper, not the truth, that a trust accounting is a list of where money slept, that DBA is a mask of fund wares, that chain of evidence is just dates, copies, and respect for order. If you're watching, I said to the camera I finally allowed, ask for dates. Write them down. Photograph the envelopes. Stamp the copies. Explain legal words in kitchen language. We set the stone, and Renee placed geraniums around it like bright punctuation. After, I met with my director. Take a week, she said. Then come back and catalog what you can reach. Healing became chores with holy edges, therapy Tuesdays, letters to the fire marshal and the probate examiner, family dinners where we used paper plates and truth like salt. Victor did not come. He sent one final message through an attorney, a proposal to resolve reputational damage with a donation if we agree not to pursue further disclosures. Patel sent back a single line, no. I slept a full night for the first time since the envelope arrived. In the morning, I made tea and watched sun find the harbor like it had just remembered us. If you're carrying a secret that stains your calendar, my advice is simple. Gather proof, invite witnesses, expect weather, and choose the kind of love that doesn't require forgetting. Because sometimes the doorbell rings, and the house you inherit finally answers.